Hello, and welcome to this CUBE conversation where we will explore the heart of what makes AI tick, the data, and we'll gather some insights from Ataccama's Data Trust Report. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Larry Hunt, who's the Field Chief Data Officer at Ataccama. Welcome on board, Larry.
They're really happy to be here. Thanks for hosting us today and looking forward to the discussion.
I've been excited about this for quite a bit because, both of us spent some time on the financial services side of the things. You much more than I did. I had a little stint there, but, that must give you some unique perspective and opportunity to share benefits of AI and data trust and governance with customers. What's changed most in how banks treat data as a strategic asset?
I think it's just that. I think when I first started in banking and really first started my career, data wasn't a career path, nor was it considered an asset for the banks. Most of the banks historically have focused on people, process, and technology. But over time, data is elevated to the same level as those three particular focus areas. Data is used as a utility to ensure compliance and resilience. It's also now being seen as an asset to fuel innovation. The biggest thing is the data conversation has shifted from historically, which was an IT black box that nobody didn't understand, to a conversation with CEOs and boards of what we can do with our data to unlock value for the company. And a lot of that has been accelerated in recent months with the evolution of AI, what companies think they can do with it to further drive value for their companies.
Yeah, I think that's a great stepping off point. Data fuels AI, to put it mildly. And I think, as you said, with banks, having been there, and we had more than just, different financial instruments. We had different separations. We had to have different governance over different pieces of it. And AI kind of muddies the water a little bit, I would assume. But, it's one of these things that you can't ignore AI. So why is adoption happening so fast now, especially in financial services and the banking industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. And not to be controversial, I don't know if adoption actually is happening. I believe that there is an ambition to drive AI usage. But to the earlier sort of conversation, there are key components to make that real that are blocking the adoption for AI. Because my definition of adoption is actually implementation. And I think we've seen in some of our own internal analytics and our data trust report, 99% of financial services companies are looking to pilot some sort of AI program, but only 3 to 4% are actually seeing an outcome. And one of the key blockers in the ability to do that is trusted data. In addition, like tying back to what I said earlier, having the right people, the right infrastructure, the right technology. But even in my own experience, one of the biggest lack of data causes not to be able to deliver key use cases that we were trying to deliver. So something as simple as scripts for a call center that an LLM could use to summarize that, the data didn't exist, so we weren't able to achieve those outcomes for those models.
Yeah, I don't know that you're being that controversial about it, because there's definitely reports out there that people are getting stuck in POC and trying to figure out the ROI of AI, to put it mildly.
Right.
But, you also brought up a really good point here with, how leaders are trying to figure out how to balance AI ambition with governance and risk and regulation. How do you see them approaching that governance, risk, and regulation when it comes to that AI ambition?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think what the leaders that are being successful see data management as the norm. And like embedding how they manage their data as a key dependency on delivering the value, not only from an innovation perspective, but also from a compliance perspective. So that means compliance by design is part of what you're rolling out from an AI perspective, ensuring that what you have is adaptable as we move to more modular technology and infrastructure. And it needs to be part of the strategy. Your governance is an enabler to build trust. The other piece of that is leveraging the AI to do the governance aspect of it. Because the one thing that the AI narrative has over some of the other things that we've tried to adopt historically is people have already accepted that AI is going to happen. Most of us have used ChatGPT. The introduction of the prompt made AI real for everybody. And so everybody wants it, but some companies aren't ready to do it because they don't have the governance in place and the trusted data in place. And so being able to embed that and do it as part of the process, which we've learned in other sort of technology rollouts, that if you don't do it, playing catch up later is not the right strategy. It's going to be something you have to pay for at the end. The leaders who are thinking about that now are the ones that are going to be successful and deliver value and sort of business outcomes for their CEOs and their boards.
I think that to me makes a lot of sense in the fact that, governance, you have to have it there to begin with. You need to be able to kind of have those guardrails set in place to help people and guide them where they're going. But again, you're out there talking to these companies and these organizations all the time. Where do governance programs fail first from what you've been seeing?
Maybe another controversial statement. Most governance programs fail by trying to sell a governance program. The governance program is really to enable business outcomes. So if you're not connecting that governance program to a business outcome, the audience that's receiving it is not going to understand the why, and the why is super important. Secondarily, sometimes when you are able to do the governance program to the business outcomes, you're still lacking a larger data strategy. And that data strategy more holistically needs to talk about the roadmap for the company. In addition to governance, thinking about data management, execution, the architecture that's required, and how you're going to enable your larger roadmap for AI and analytics. But even with that, those programs don't always find success because the third piece of it is sustainability. And I think one common narrative, whether it's data management or whether it's AI or it's any sort of theory or practice or new technology that we're looking at, being able to scale and sustainability in the current environment with just the amount of data that's out there is probably the biggest impediment. So making sure you have the tools that enable you to scale so you can actually do that from a data management perspective is a critical sort of unlock to be able to have a successful program. The program itself is good. The tools that actually sustain it and make it real so you can actually execute on it, those are the leaders that are going to win in a target state environment.
Yeah, I like how you put that. The sustainability of the program really is the key to, people wanting to use it. And like you said, if it makes my life easier versus makes it, governance, again, always has had that rap where, hey, it's always the place of no, you can't do this. It has to be that enabler versus, hey, being a no out of the gate, to put it mildly. So let's shift a little bit here because I think there's, definitely a lot of legacy debt out there. Is that getting better, or is there still a lot of triage that's going on to bring things up to spec, to get enabled to be able to go and do these things?
Short answer is no. It's actually getting worse. And I think, and the more, the larger the company and the more acquisitions they've been through, I think the more federated and complicated their underlying environments are. And it's not for lack of trying to do the right things. I think it's just a byproduct of where prioritization has been. So like if you're starting Evergreen today, then yeah, you're going to be in really good shape. Most companies are kind of struggling half in, half out on a legacy tech strategy that was on-prem and trying to figure out what their modernization strategy is going to be going forward, moving to the cloud. AI is starting to expedite that shift, so you can figure out how you can start to manage your storage and compute. Again, scalability to manage AI. And I think again, getting back to like data trust and sort of what we see in our data trust report, one of the biggest pain points that companies see when it comes to trying to stitch that data together, it's really hard to understand it, make sure where it's coming from, make sure it's fit for use. I do think companies are making a concerted effort to clean that up, but I still think it's going to be the foreseeable near future. They're going to have to manage that hybrid environment. And there's also a cost-benefit analysis that I think that's happening there too, as they kind of move to the cloud and start to see like the real sort of cost of their service charges as they start to move things to the cloud and what the right mix of that is. But holistically, I think most companies have an opportunity to de-risk their larger environment through their tech stack to get to a sort of common set of data, with the move to data products, data domains. I think that will start to then better inform how the underlying tech stack will start to align to that, to start to eliminate some of that historical legacy tech debt.
Yeah, I was having a conversation about data products just a little bit earlier today, and I think one of the things that's super interesting about this entire what's going on with AI and everything like that is you still have to align the data. You still have to make the data ready for use for AI, or you get, it's garbage in and garbage out. But one of the things that's kind of been a more recent invention, and again, given that you have this as part of your title, when you start to look at how CDOs, chief data officers, try to balance value creation with compliance, how do you think they're trying to make that balance happen? Because I think, to me, it's about giving the right data to the right people, but at the same time, making sure you manage that risk and have it well governed. How do you see them balancing that while they're starting to, try to figure out what value they can create out of all of these different new techniques?
Yeah, I think, so I think the first thing is the CDOs that are going to be successful at it, it's part of their larger strategy and roadmap. And the core component of that strategy is that governance is an enabler, and building data trust accelerates both what we'll call the defensive side of the CDO's job, which is managing the regulatory compliance items that are BAU, table stakes. You have to get the data right. Otherwise, the regulators will have concern to start asking questions and then potentially opening issues, through how you leverage data to drive efficiency internally, right? So as you kind of take a look at the latest, when I started data about 12 years ago in financial services, I was in a capital group, and it was, post the financial crisis, the capital ratio was the number one thing. We quickly moved to liquidity, living will. Can you wind down the banks, and do you have the liquidity to do it? If you listen to the bank's earnings calls most recently, you hear about capital, you hear about liquidity, but they're all focused on their efficiency ratios. What does it cost me to generate each dollar that I bring in? And they all want to be at 50%. So the CDOs that can treat governance and trusted data to drive that efficiency ratio get to a business outcome that's going to be relevant at the CFO, CDO level. They've also addressed the risk side of it from a CRO perspective, which then embeds a foundation where you can then jump to driving business value to increase productivity, competitive advantage for that particular firm. If you were focused on one of those three things and not thinking about it holistically with the right balance, those CDOs are going to have a tougher time trying to succeed in the current environment.
I love that. I think, again, always starting from those, key KPIs for the company or the organization, like very similar to same store sales in the retail sector is exactly what you were talking about with efficiency in the financial sector as well. I think that makes total sense. In all of the insights that you've gathered and what you've been seeing in the report and what you've been seeing talking to customers, what do you think leaders should prepare for in the next 2 to 3 years?
It's a great question. That I think about this, from time to time. I'm not really sure because I can't predict the future. There are a couple of things, though, that if I look at my crystal ball, that seem there to be pretty consistent. One is, I currently, my own personal opinion, believe we are in an AI hype cycle. However, just like we were in sort of an internet hype cycle in the 2000s before the dot-com bubble sort of burst, the reality of what the internet was supposed to be came to fruition, and it came to fruition probably even greater than what we were stating then. It just took more time. I think on the AI front, we're going to see exactly the same thing, but we're going to see it faster. As with most things, I think the speed to market, as you continue to sort of drive innovation, continues to reduce. With that, the need for trusted data, what we see is like, financial services leaders 40%, 46% of them about, see data quality as a key sort of thing that they need to focus on. Compliance to data management discipline is also something that registers quite heavily, but their ability to meet that is something that they worry about. And so I do believe that data management sort of focus and rigor to have trusted data to enable, the key functions that financial services companies want to perform in the future will continue. So like I mentioned it earlier, I never thought I'd be in a data career 25 years ago. But I am very much in a data career. I'm pretty excited to what that's going to bring. Because I know without knowing the future, I know data is going to be a critical component of it. And I know trusted data is going to be a critical component of it. What we see in the trust report kind of solidified that for me. So I'm super excited to what's to come. And honestly, I'm actually sort of looking forward to what surprises I might see too, because I know data is probably going to be a key component to deliver on those as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that the AI hype cycle has been a little bit crazy, to put it mildly. I think that definitely, agents and how every agent's going to talk to another MCP server and another agent, and all of this is still a little bit out there. I definitely think it'll come, but I think we're not going to get there as fast as I think we all thought we might about 6 months ago. But that, like you said, I don't have a crystal ball either. So I appreciate that, because I think what you were talking about is really things people can look forward to. And I think they can look forward to your report and taking a look at the trust report as well, because I think they'll be able to get some good stuff out of that. So thanks for coming on board, Larry.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time. Enjoyed the conversation. We'll do it again sometime, see what type of stuff does come in the future, see how close we were to what it could or could not be. But I guarantee you trusted data will be required for whatever's to come.
I couldn't agree more. And thank you for joining us on this CUBE conversation on theCUBE, the leader in analysis and news.